Hey guys, Shawn from Hipsters of the Coast here. I'm recording for Modern Hero, and this is week one with Green Black Elves. So I'm going to just do a quick sort of deck tech kind of thing before we run this through the a league. And yeah, so mana base is pretty straightforward. It's forests. We have Llanowar Wastes and Blooming Marshes to add black mana, and we have a Nykthos just for the generating millions of mana, which is useful for stuff like Court of Calling. The mana base is certainly budget. There's no Cavern of Souls. There's no Razor Verge Thickets for the white splash. There's no Horizon Canopies. Those cards make up the bulk of the expense of purchasing the deck in real life. So those, just by cutting those, we were able to cut the price of buying into the deck way down. For 1-drops, we have a bunch of mana dorks. We got our Elvish Mystics, our Llanowar Elves, which I purposely found the worst white bordered 7th edition version because that's when I first started playing, and that's the way I think about Llanowar Elves. We have our Heritage Druids, which allow for some pretty insane starts, especially with in conjunction with Dwynen's Elite. It's just really easy to do something like play Heritage Druid on 1, play Dwynen's Elite on 2, have 3 mana, and then play an Elvish Archdruid, or multiple mana dorks. So that's real. We also have our Nettle Sentinels to go with Heritage Druid. They combo because basically every time you play a green creature, the Nettle Sentinels will untap, and then you can tap them with the Heritage Druid. Pretty straightforward stuff. It is worth noting that the deck in general is much less expensive online, and I actually included over here the breakdown of how much all the cards cost. So, most of these cards are, a nickel each. But because of basically Nettle Sentinel is $7, 7 tickets online, which is pretty heinous. So like I said, most of the cards are more expensive, but Nettle Sentinel just isn't one of them. 2-drops, we have the Dwynen's Elite, which I talked about earlier, and we have 3 Visionaries. Initially, when I posted the list on Hipsters, I had included 4 Visionary and 3 Dwynen's Elite, which someone pointed out to me was just totally incorrect. And after I thought about it for half a second, I agreed with them. We have a Silver Bullet Reclamation Sage on 3. We have our Elvish Archdruids, which allow us to create insane amounts of mana and also overrun our opponents. Speaking of overrun, Azuri, obviously insane. If you can ever activate this with pretty much any number of elves on the battlefield, you win. So that's great. Shaman of the Pack, nice way to close out games. It's the entire reason for the black splash. So we have the 8 black sources here, and then we can also get it off Collected Company and Court of Calling. 8 sources might be a little on the low side. I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to try it out and see how it goes. The other card that makes this deck expensive online is Collected Company, which are somewhere in the realm, I think, of 17 tickets each. That's what I ended up paying for them. So, but Collected Company is obviously busted. We have a 1 of Sylvan Messenger, which we can get off Court of Calling, not off Collected Company, obviously. It's a card I like for grindier matchups where they have a lot of removal, but in general, it's a little on the expensive side for the deck, and it's not always necessary. So I like the 1 of. So the sideboard, I took this list from an online user. So some of these cards I'm gonna guess a little bit, but Essence Warden used to be a card you could bring in against the twin combo. Was not a great answer to it, especially because it did not stop Pester Mites. But I think in this case, We want it in situations where we're playing against other creature-based aggro decks and we're trying to race them, so gaining life is relevant. Evolutionary Leap, we want against decks like Jund and Abzan, probably against Grixis as well. Basically, it's just a way to sort of blank their removal and play a grindier game. Scavenging Ooze is good against graveyard shenanigans, obviously. Chokes, good against blue decks. Merfolk, especially if they don't have a mana base where they play stuff like Wonderwine Hub to avoid getting choked out. Croson Grip, problematic enchantments and artifacts. Lead the Stampede, also wanted in grindier matchups. Rex Sage and Fracturing Gust, all cards that come in against Affinity. In terms of how well positioned the deck is right now, I've read that it's pretty reasonable against stuff like Death Shadow because going wide is really useful against them. And in general, it's a pretty fast creature-based aggro deck. But the biggest problem I see is that there's basically no disruption main deck. So if your opponent is faster than you, playing something like Ad Nauseam, I imagine Ad Nauseam is probably a terrible matchup. Because they can basically just ignore what you're doing until you have lethal, and then even then they have Phyrexian Unlife and the Angel's Graces. So, like I said, I haven't had a lot of experience playing this deck, which I hope is part of the charm in watching me over the next couple weeks. If it's infuriating, you could also let me know that. The plan is to make the deck better in time, but also to make me a better pilot. So here we go. We're going to run it through a league. We'll see you guys in a second.